Hello everyone, welcome back to 70s and 80s Talk. Today I am going to do something a bit different. I have reviewed mainly music, some of the Halloween films which haven't really had many views. Was going to review Halloween 3 or even just the rest of them, just put them all in one video, but Netflix have took them off, so I can't do that. So yeah, I'm mentioned in previous videos about a TV show documentary on Channel 5 about the Winter of Discontent, which was a time in 1978 to 1989, the winter between that period of time. And basically, it's quite similar to what's happening now with the energy crisis, inflation skyrocketing. Quite a few similar things happening all these years later, and I guess that's why they've done the documentary, because of the way times are at the moment. And I just thought I'd do a bit of a review of it, a bit of a talk of it, with it being 70s and 80s Talk, the channel. I want to talk about things that happened during those times, not just the music, mainly music, but I thought this would be something different to do. So yeah, like I say, when I watched the documentary, I didn't know about any of it really. I knew about how there was really bad winters in the 70s. My dad told me about that. And how there was like blackouts and things like that because of, well, I didn't really know why until it's all come to light with this documentary sort of thing about strikes and stuff like that. To be honest, they didn't really mention that much about blackouts in this documentary though. So we kick off the documentary talking about Saturday Night Fever, the film. I'm not really that much of a fan of it, to be honest. I prefer Grease. People were escaping reality by going to discos, and I feel like not that much has changed. Yeah, we don't have discos anymore, but a lot of people do escape by listening to music. They do. So, you know, really, the times haven't changed that much. 30 pence for a pint. Wow, I was like, wait, what? I mean, I don't drink pints, but that's cheap. I'm assuming even that probably went up back then. So it was basically a time where a lot of strikes were happening, and to kick off the strikes was one of the biggest car manufacturers in the country at the time, being Ford. They really were the kickstart of the Winter of Discontent in a way, which was, I found interesting. I never really thought it would be them that would have like started the strikes basically. They were wanting a 30% pay rise. Then the documentary moves on to more back about how people escaping those times, and Grease came out, which obviously is a massive film, still is now. And again, people were just doing the same what they do now, looking for ways to escape reality. We got mention of Space Invaders the game. I mean, times have come on since then. You can just play games on your phone now. Angel Delight. Now this makes me laugh because my mum has a thing about collecting Angel Delight. Like honestly, you go in the cupboard and it's just like packets of Angel Delight. But yeah, it was it's alright. It's alright. But people were making that because it was a cheap dessert to make, you know. It still is now. Ford, with them going on strike, released a song. Maybe I should actually listen to it in full and review it. I mean, they played a bit of it on the documentary, which again, I think it's a thing of us as humans. We express our emotions in song, and they did that. Yeah, there's talks about with Ford, there was large profits and the workers weren't seeing any of those profits. Again, not a lot has changed. That happens all the time with big companies or any company. Really, it is a common thing, unfortunately, where employers don't see that hard work that they've done, that pay rise, which I can understand why they wanted it. I can understand that for sure, because they're the ones that put the work in, which made the millions of profit, and they didn't see any of that. And then we've got the Prime Minister, Callaghan. He put a 5% cap on pay rises to help inflation. And again, I mean, if you look at the news now, I mean, I'm not an expert in politics, if anything, you can tell by, I'm just reviewing this programme and having a bit of a chit chat here about it. I wasn't around in these times or anything like that. But I think the government are doing all these things to try and bring inflation down, but that's kind of having a negative effect on people, and it's just a really nasty mix of a lot of things going on, and all these years later it's happening again, you know. And I just want to say, I always talk about the 70s and 80s, how those times were great. I feel like they were a lot more, I don't know, straightforward, but stuff did happen, bad stuff did happen. It wasn't perfect, they weren't perfect times, I'm quite aware of that. More strikes happened, people were panic buying, they were stopping the bread vans, leaving the bakers, the public were baking bread. I mean, that was a big thing during lockdown. Again, we do these similar things as humans, we react in the same way even all these decades later. So Ford workers got a 17% increase in wages. Basically, I wonder if they weren't losing the millions, would they have given them the pay rise? But obviously they were going to lose millions because they were workers on strike, so nothing was getting put out there. But they should have just given them the pay rise anyway that they deserved, without having to do it after the company was actually losing millions. One thing that was wrote here, we can deal without money, but we can't deal without tradition. Somebody said that on the documentary, I can't remember who. Yeah, I like that. I like that because I'm quite a traditional person. And yeah, it's a good line, that. They were talking about the BBC strike that I wrote there. I think this was about the Christmas Day telly being cut. I think that's what that was about. Yeah, and I think they got a pay rise as well, which resolved that issue. We had ABBA on the telly singing "Thank You for the Music." Again, music's the saviour. It is, you know, it's an escape from reality. It still is now. So yeah, moving into like 1979, we got all the snow. I kind of knew about that. I knew there was one year, I think there was a few years in the 70s which was really bad for snow. I live up north, so my dad, he used to live really high up, even higher up than we live now. And yeah, he used to say that you couldn't, you opened your front door and it was just snow, you weren't leaving your house, you had icicles on the inside of the windows, which is a weird thing to think of for someone like me who wasn't around then. And now, I mean, I've never seen anything like that, but I mean, we get a bit of snow these days and the whole country goes to a standstill, which is becoming less and less likely though with climate change. Then we got the lorry drivers striking, which of course the lorry drivers are where everything, without them you don't get from A to B, you don't get the produce going from wherever they're coming from to there. The supply chains just cease, and then the economy suffered. So that happened. A lot of talks of unions. I've wrote here, they were deciding what was essential. Food wise, that is petrol and food panic buying, which we have seen in recent years. We've seen this year with the petrol prices skyrocketing. The same thing's happening, maybe for different reasons, but the same thing is pretty much happening or happened. We talk here in the documentary about a great sense of community, and people would always be helping each other out. And unfortunately, I think it's not as much the case now. I think a lot more people are more reserved in a way. I don't think there is as much of the community. Maybe in some places there is, but as a whole, I think that has been lost since the 70s and 80s. I think communities and people helping each other out, it doesn't happen as much. which is a shame. Then we got more bad snow, and they were getting the army to drive the lorries and man the petrol pumps. I mean, it's almost like a biblical scene in the videos from that time on the documentary. And again, we've seen it, like similar scenes now, back in lockdown. I mean, different reasons, but the same thing. And while all of this hell was breaking out, the Prime Minister was on holiday. I mean, we've seen that before as well, when the country's been in a crisis and people in Parliament have just gone away. Not great. I'm not going to go into politics because it's a mess at the moment, isn't it? Right. So public sector, 1.5 million of them went on strike. That's what happened next. I think, again, it's something similar. Back then, people were really starting to appreciate public sector workers, lorry workers, bin men, key workers. They really started to appreciate and realise, crikey, what they do is really hard, and what they're doing is vital. It's vital. And I think probably more to the lockdown, people realise that again. It shouldn't be forgotten. It shouldn't be forgotten. You know, public sector workers, key workers, they really are great. You know, without them, the country just stops. It does. Okay, so the next bit in the documentary. Yeah, so rubbish piled up because the bin men were on strike. Transport ceased. And yeah, we've seen stuff like that this year. I mean, the bin men went on strike, was it in Glasgow, and the rubbish was piling up. So then the ambulance were called in to drive the ambulances. It was bad. It was really bad. I didn't realise how bad it was. I'm glad that they did release this documentary because I found it really interesting. And to not forget, also I think it's a reminder that not to forget that stuff that's happening now, but I know it's under different circumstances and different reasons, but if you just think it as a bad time, we got through it then, and we can get through it now. I think someone actually said that on this documentary. And then they gritted the roads and the snow returned again. Crikey, it was a bad winter, man. A bad winter. Yeah, rubbish still piling up. Then we got Thatcher in. Yeah, right, I'm not gonna go into that. Anyway, I'm northern. Right, so yeah, I'm just gonna, again, looking at the similarities between then and now. So, as everyone knows, we've got a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and she has been compared to Thatcher. And I guess when Thatcher came in, she was in difficult times. She had to bring inflation down, and Liz Truss is having to do the same thing. We have lost a male Prime Minister, and we've now got a female Prime Minister. Yes, back then it was Labour going into Conservative. That's the difference. But again, quite similar. What's going on? Yeah, we don't have winters like they did. I wrote there. Yeah, I think another thing I've mentioned here, like, I thought there'd be more mention about the blackouts, because I know there was a lot in the newspapers about how there was lots of blackouts in the 70s, and there's talk about blackouts happening this winter and how to cope and stuff like that. So I thought there'd be more about that, but actually there wasn't really that much mention. I know obviously back then there was more coal fires in comparison to the gas. But obviously I think more the coal miner strikes were kind of early 80s. But I think there was some then, and maybe that's why there was an issue. And there was some blackouts, or even maybe the power station workers went on strike. I mean, I did have a look, but there's kind of just like mixing. I think it's like, why were there blackouts in the 70s? Yeah. What else have I wrote here? Yeah. So, if we have a look on here. Wow, I mean, it talks here about butchers making makeshift candles out of string and lard. I mean, miners used to do that. They used to make candles out of lard. They used to even eat them if they got really hungry. Coal miners, that is. I think actually any miners, probably even like lead miners as well. It says here that it was the unions that were the main cause of the blackouts in the 1970s. Right, okay, so there was a low reserve of coal. This was early 70s though. This wasn't the Winter of Discontent. So maybe this was this different time? I don't know. Here we go. Crikey, there's actually like even more, so much to learn about the 70s. It's such an interesting decade. Oh. Yeah, maybe this was more like before that time. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments, because I don't know. But I'm assuming it was down to coal miner strikes, power station strikes. That was the reason why there was blackouts, because was probably the main source of energy back then in comparison to gas like now. But anyway, this has been more of a talk than a review, I guess, but I will review the documentary. I thought it was quite good. I thought it was quite interesting. If you like learning about what happened in the past, in the 70s. I mean, it doesn't even seem that long ago, but actually it was. It was like, well, 40, 50 years ago, something ridiculous like that. I'm not doing the maths, hang on. Why does it give you in dates for? Like, why does it do that? 43 years ago. It was 1979. I don't know why it gives you in days. So yeah, I would recommend watching the documentary. I actually, when I was looking on there, I actually found some other documentaries about the 70s and 80s music precisely, which I thought I could watch it, but I'm always a bit skeptical to watch or cautious to watch those, because it's normally it's the same bands that are on them. It's mainly pop, and I don't understand that, because I feel like pop was big in the 70s, well, the 80s more, but rock was big as well. That was when it was its biggest. So why isn't there more rock songs on, like when they do, I don't know, the top 150 songs of the 80s and 70s or whatever, like they never include like rock songs, and it's like really annoying. Right, so yeah, a bit different there. There's a bit of a talk of the 70s, even though I really don't know what I'm talking about, which is quite evident in this video. Back to album reviews after this. I'm going to put a little video out about Cyndi Lauper's The Goonies Are Good Enough, which I was going to do. I was going to put it on the album review, but then I forgot. And it was actually only on the Japan. Is it Japan? Japan Deluxe version, I think. And then I've just reviewed another 2 albums last night. So the one I'm going to be reviewing next is Whitesnake's Slip Over the Tongue album. So keep a lookout for that. Thank you for watching, everyone. Take care now. Bye.